there's two ways to update a resource: a full update and a partial update. In this demo, we'll cover full updates. For that, we use the HTTP put method. As we previously learned, it's a good idea to use different models for create, update, and read, even if they at this moment contain the same properties. So let's start by adding a DTO for updating a point of interest. So we choose to add a new class, and we name it point of interest for update DTO. It has the same properties and rules as we used for creating one. So we add those data validation attributes. That's it for our DTO. Let's switch to the controller. And on our controller, we add a new action: update point of interest. For full updates, we decorate it with the HTTP put attribute. The route template contains the city ID first, followed by points of interest, and then followed by the ID of the point of interest we want to update. The first part is covered in the route attribute template, so all we need to do is add point of interest ID to the HTTP put attribute template. It's a parameter we want to see bound to the point of interest ID, so we surround it with curly brackets. As far as returning a value, we can choose. Put actions can either return the updated resource as body of a 200 OK response, or nothing. That's a 204 no content result, which means that the request completed successfully, but there's nothing to return. Both approaches are valid. In our case, there is something to be said for returning nothing, as the consumer already has all the information regarding the updated resource. After all, it's the consumer who sent the content that had to be changed. So the return type is an action result. The content of the request will be deserialized into a point of interest for update DTO, and we don't have to mark it with the from body attribute because it's a complex type, and thanks to the API controller attribute, it will automatically be deserialized from the request body. Next, we check if we can find the city. If we cannot find it, we return a not found, and we check whether we can find the point of interest we want to update. If we don't find it, we also return a not found. If this checks out, we can execute the update. And this is where the full update principle comes into play. According to the HTTP standard, put should fully update a resource. That means that the consumer of the API must provide values for all fields of the resource, save for the ID, as that one is already coming from the URI. If the consumer doesn't provide a value for a field, that field should be put to its default value, which conveniently it will have in the inputted object. So what we must do to adhere to this is update all fields. In our case, that's just a matter of copying over the name and the description. Lastly, we return a 204 no content. Let's give this a try. We're back in Postman. I've got a request lined up here to update a point of interest. In the body, we have an updated name field and description field. Important to know is that we also have to input a content type here, stating the data format of the request body because it has to be deserialized, and our API needs to know which formatter to use. Let's send this request. We get back a 204 no content. Looks good. Just to be sure, let's try getting this point of interest to see if it was effectively updated. And that is indeed the case. Now let's try out that full update principle. I've got another request lined up here. It's the same one as the previous request, but this time we don't include a description. That means that the description should be put to its default value. Let's click send. We get back a 204 no content, so apparently our request was successful. Let's try getting that point of interest. And there we go. Description was set to null. That's the default value. This is correct according to the HTTP standard. But it might not be ideal for consumers of the API. Imagine a case where a resource has 20 fields. You only want to update one of those fields. That would mean that the consumer would first have to get the full resource, including all fields, from the API, and then send them back with a put request, but with one field changed. That's quite a bit of overhead. It would be nice if there was some sort of way to send a change set over the wire, only containing those fields that have to be updated. And there is. JSON document, combined with a patch method. Let's check that out.